Welcome to Shadows of the Past, where the darkest corners of human history come to life. Tonight, we delve into 10 chilling true crime stories, tales of betrayal, obsession, and unthinkable violence that linger long after the final word. These are not just cases, they are haunting reminders of the fragility of trust and the shadows that hide in plain sight. As the rain falls softly in the background, let these stories unfold, drawing you into a world where motives unravel and secrets refuse to stay buried. Each case will pull you deeper, leaving you questioning how far the human heart can fall. Settle in, dim the lights, and let the darkness guide you. This is Volume 39, and the past is waiting to speak. Part 1. The Murder of Ko Uni, Seoul, South Korea, 2014. In the bustling streets of Seoul, where neon lights cast long shadows, a young woman's life was stolen in a moment of chilling clarity. Ko Uni, a 22-year-old college student, was vibrant, ambitious, her laughter a melody that brightened lecture halls. She studied literature, dreaming of a future filled with stories, her own, and those she'd write. But in August 2014, her story was cut short, rewritten by a stranger's obsession, in a crime that would shake South Korea to its core. The night was warm, the air thick with summer's embrace. Ko Uni walked alone, her steps quick along a quiet alley near her university. She was heading home after a late study session, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her thoughts likely on the pages she'd read. She didn't notice the figure trailing her, his presence cloaked by the hum of the city. Lee Jae-hun, a 29-year-old software engineer, was not a man who stood out. To colleagues, he was quiet, unremarkable, his days spent coding in a cubicle, his nights lost to solitude. But beneath this ordinary facade burned a darkness, a festering resentment that had chosen Ko Uni as its target. Lee had seen her before, on campus, her smile catching his eye like a flame in the dark. To him, she was everything he was not. Young, successful, surrounded by friends. Ko Uni embodied the life he craved, a life he felt denied by years of isolation and failure. His depression, untreated and ignored, had twisted into something sinister. A recent breakup had pushed him further into despair, his mind spiraling into a dangerous obsession. Ko Uni wasn't just a person to him, she was a symbol, a mirror reflecting his own inadequacies, and in his fractured psyche, destroying that mirror became his only. That night, Lee followed her, his steps deliberate, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and resolve. He carried a knife, its blade glinting faintly under the streetlights. Ko Uni, unaware, turned into the alley, a shortcut she'd taken countless times. The city's noise faded, leaving only the echo of her footsteps. Lee closed the distance, his breath shallow, his grip tightening on the weapon. In a sudden, brutal moment, he struck. The attack was swift, merciless. Ko Uni fought, her scream swallowed by the night, but Lee's rage was unrelenting. Multiple stab wounds pierced her body, each one a release of his pent-up anguish. Within minutes, she lay still, her dreams extinguished in a pool of blood. Lee fled, his hands trembling, the knife discarded in a nearby dumpster. He returned to his apartment, the weight of his actions settling like a stone in his chest. But the city was watching. Surveillance cameras, ever present in Seoul, had captured glimpses of his figure, blurry but enough to spark a manhunt. Witnesses reported a man in a dark jacket near the alley, his hurried steps betraying guilt. Within days, police zeroed in on Lee Hun. His co-workers noted his absence, his sudden withdrawal from routine. When authorities knocked on his door, they found a man unraveling, his apartment a shrine of chaos. Notes, sketches, and photos of Ko Uni, evidence of an obsession that had consumed him. In interrogation, Lee's facade crumbled. He confessed, his voice hollow as if the act had drained him of humanity. He spoke of his loneliness, his envy, how Ko Uni's brightness had mocked his darkness. She had everything, he whispered, and I had nothing. His words were a chilling window into a mind where resentment had festered into violence. The prosecution painted a damning picture, a premeditated act planned over weeks, driven by a toxic blend of jealousy and inadequacy. Lee's defense argued his mental state, citing depression as a mitigating factor, but the court saw no mercy for a life so callously taken. The trial was swift, the evidence overwhelming. Surveillance footage, forensic matches on the knife, and Lee's own confession left no room for doubt. In 2015, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life. in prison, a verdict that brought little solace to Ko Uni's family. Her parents, devastated, spoke of their daughter's kindness, her dreams of writing novels that would touch the world. Her friends filled courtrooms with memories, each one a testament to a life cut short by a stranger's hatred. The case sent ripples through South Korea, igniting debates on mental health and the stigma that kept men like Lee from seeking help. Ko Uni's death was more than a tragedy, it was a warning. How many others walked among us, their pain hidden, their anger simmering? Seoul's streets, once alive with promise, now carried a shadow of caution. Her university erected a memorial, a quiet bench inscribed with her name, where students left flowers and whispered prayers. But no tribute could erase the voice she left behind. Lee Hun, locked away, became a footnote, his name fading while Ko Uni's endured in the hearts of those who loved her. As we leave this story, the rain outside seems heavier, each drop a reminder of lives lost to moments of madness. Ko Uni's laughter no longer echoes, but her story lingers, a haunting question. What drives a man to destroy what he can never have? Stay with us as the shadows deepen and we unravel another tale where the past refuses to rest. Part 2, the Charleston church shooting, South Carolina, USA, 2015. In the quiet heart of Charleston, South Carolina, where history whispers through cobblestone streets and ancient oaks, a sacred space stood as a beacon of hope. The Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church, known as Mother Emanuel, was more than a place of worship. For nearly 2 centuries, it had been a sanctuary for the Black community, a refuge from the storms of racism, a cradle of resilience. But on the evening of June 17, 2015, that sanctuary was shattered by an act of hatred so vile it would sear itself into the soul of a nation. 9 lives were stolen, their prayers silenced by a young man whose heart had been consumed by darkness. This is the story of the Charleston church shooting, a tragedy that exposed the enduring poison of prejudice and the fragility of peace. The air was warm that Wednesday, the summer sun dipping below the horizon as the congregation gathered for their weekly Bible study. The group was small, intimate, 12 souls sharing scripture, laughter, and faith. Among them were Reverend Clementa Pinckney, the church's pastor and a state senator, whose voice carried the weight of leadership, Cynthia Hurd, a librarian with a gentle smile, and Myra Thompson, a teacher whose warmth drew people close. They were mothers, fathers, siblings, friends. Ordinary people bound by extraordinary love. The room hummed with quiet devotion, the pages of their Bibles rustling softly. At around 8:00 p.m., a stranger entered the church. Dylan Roof, a 21-year-old with pale skin and a boyish face, stood at the threshold, his eyes scanning the room. He wore a gray sweatshirt, his hands tucked into his pockets. The congregation, ever welcoming, invited him to join them. Reverend Pinckney gestured to an empty chair, his smile genuine. Roof sat, his silence unremarkable at first. For nearly an hour, he listened as the group discussed scripture, their voices rising in prayer. No one could have known that beneath his quiet demeanor, a storm was raging, a hatred so deep it had already scripted their deaths. Dylan Roof was no stranger to darkness. Raised in a fractured home in Columbia, South Carolina, he had drifted through his teenage years, a loner with few friends and a growing obsession with white supremacist ideology. The internet became his teacher, forums like Stormfront and 4chan feeding his mind with propaganda. He devoured manifestos, idolized figures like Anders Breivik, and fixated on the idea of a race war. His Roof, Black Americans were not just inferior, they were a threat, a blight on his vision of a white America. His hatred crystallized in a 2,000-word manifesto he posted online, a chilling document that declared his intent to act. "I have no choice," he wrote. "I am not in the position to, alone, go into the ghetto and fight. I chose Charleston because it is the most historic city in my state." Mother Emanuel was no random target. Its history as a center of Black resistance, from its founding in 1818 to its role in the civil rights movement, made it a symbol in Roof's twisted mind. He had scouted the church weeks earlier, noting its open doors and trusting congregation. In April 2015, he purchased a .45 caliber Glock handgun from a local dealer, exploiting a loophole in a background check that failed to flag his prior drug arrest. The weapon, sleek and deadly, became his instrument of vengeance. He practiced at a makeshift range, his aim steady, his resolve unshakable. As the Bible study drew to a close, the group stood for a final prayer. Heads bowed, eyes closed, they entrusted their hearts to faith. It was then that Roof made his move. He reached into his fanny pack, pulled out the Glock, and opened fire. The first shots tore through the silence, a deafening roar that echoed off the wooden pews. Reverend Pinckney fell first, his body crumpling to the floor. Chaos erupted as the others scrambled, their screams mingling with the relentless crack of gunfire. Roof reloaded 5 times, each magazine unloading 8 rounds. He targeted the elderly, the women, the young, anyone who moved. "Y'all want something to pray about? I'll give you something to pray about," he taunted, his voice dripping with venom. 9 fell: Clementa Pinckney, 41, Cynthia Hurd, 54, Myra Thompson, 59, Tywanza Sanders, 26, Ethel Land, 70, Susie Jackson, 87, Daniel Simmons, 74, Sharonda Coleman Singleton, 45, and DePayne Middleton, Doctor, 49. Their blood stained the carpet, their bodies scattered like broken promises. 3 survived, including Felicia Sanders, who shielded her granddaughter beneath the table, and Polly Shepard, who Roof spared to tell the story. As he stepped over the bodies, Roof muttered racial slurs, his mission complete. He fled into the night, leaving behind a scene of unimaginable horror. The police were alerted within minutes, a 911 call from a survivor trembling with shock. Charleston's streets, usually calm, buzzed with sirens as officers descended on the church. The scene inside was a nightmare. Bodies strewn across the fellowship hall, the air heavy with the metallic scent of blood. Investigators moved carefully, their faces grim. Bullet casings littered the floor, each one a testament to Roof's precision. Outside, the community gathered, their prayers rising into the night sky, a desperate plea for answers. By morning, the nation was reeling. News of the massacre spread, the images of Mother Emanuel's white steeple juxtaposed with police tape, searing into public consciousness. The manhunt for Roof was immediate. Surveillance footage from the church captured his face, his car, a black Hyundai Elantra, spotted leaving the scene. A tip from a motorist in Shelby, North Carolina, led to his arrest the next day, just 240 miles from Charleston. Ruff sat calmly in his car, the Glock on the passenger seat, his expression devoid of remorse. When questioned, he confessed without hesitation, admitting his goal to spark a race war. "I did it," he said, his voice flat. "I had to do it." The investigation unraveled Roof's descent into extremism. His laptop revealed a digital trail of hate. Visits to white supremacist sites, searches for black-on-white crime, and photos of himself posing with Confederate flags and Nazi symbols. His manifesto, posted on a website he created, laid bare his motives. A belief that black Americans were taking over, and that violence was his only recourse. Friends, though few, recalled his rants about race dismissed as teenage bravado. His family, estranged and dysfunctional, offered little insight. Roof was a product of his own choices, nurtured by a toxic ideology that thrived in the shadows of the internet. The trial began in December 2016, a federal case that gripped the nation. The prosecution presented a mountain of evidence: the manifesto, the murder weapon, survivor testimonies, and Roof's own confession. Felicia Sanders recounted hiding with her granddaughter, her son Tywanza's final words, "We mean you no harm," pleading for mercy. Roof never gave. Polly Shepard described Roof's cold command to survive and spread his message. The defense, tasked with an impossible case, argued Roof's mental instability, but their pleas fell flat. Roof showed no emotion, his eyes distant, even as victims' families spoke of forgiveness. In a stunning move, he represented himself during sentencing, refusing to apologize. "I still feel like I had to do it," he told the jury. On January 10, 2017, Roof was convicted on all 33 federal charges, including hate crimes and murder. The jury sentenced him to death, the first federal death penalty for a hate crime in U.S. history. He showed no reaction, his fate sealed in a courtroom filled with tears. Appeals followed, but his sentence stood, a rare instance of swift justice in a nation grappling with its racial wounds. Roof remains on death row, his name a synonym for hatred. His actions a scar on Charleston's heart. The aftermath was profound. Mother Emanuel became a pilgrimage site. Its doors opened to mourners from across the globe. The victims' families, in an act of grace that stunned the world, offered forgiveness at Roof's bond hearing. "I forgive you," said Nadine Collier, daughter of Ethel Lance, her voice trembling but resolute. Their words sparked a national conversation on healing, though forgiveness did not erase pain. The Confederate flag, long a symbol of division, was removed from South Carolina's State House weeks later. A victory bittersweet amid the grief. Charleston united in vigils, white and black, hands clasped in solidarity, but the question lingered. How could such hatred fester in a boy so young? The case exposed the enduring threat of white supremacy, its roots deep in America's soil. Roof's radicalization, fueled by online echo chambers, warned of a new generation of extremists, lone wolves armed with keyboards and guns. Gun control debates reignited the loophole that allowed Roof's purchase, a glaring failure. Mental health, too, came under scrutiny, though Roof's clarity of purpose defied easy explanations. He was not mad, he was malevolent. His hatred a choice as deliberate as his aim. Mother Emanuel rebuilt, his congregation growing stronger, their faith unshaken. Memorials for the Nine. Charleston, from scholarships to murals, each one a testament to lives that mattered. Clementa Pinckney's sermons, once confined to pews, now echo in documentaries, his call for justice undimmed. Cynthia Hurd's library branch bears her name, a haven for readers she loved. Tywanza Sanders' poetry scribbled in notebooks inspires artists who never met him. Their legacies endure, a quiet defiance against the darkness that sought to erase them. But the pain remains. Families gather at graves, their memories haunted by what was lost. Charleston, a city of charm and history, carries the weight of that June night. Its streets a little quieter, its trust a little thinner. Dylan Roof, locked in a cell, awaits his end, but his actions ripple still. A reminder that hatred, unchecked, can shatter even the holiest of places. As the rain falls outside, it feels like tears. For the Nine, their names etched in eternity. Clementa, Cynthia, Myra, Tywanza, Ethel, Susie, Daniel, Sharonda, DePayne. They were not just victims, they were lights extinguished too soon. Stay with us as the shadows lengthen and another story unfolds, a tale of terror that shook a city and a continent, where the line between faith and fear was forever redrawn. The past is not done with us yet. Part 3, the Paris terrorist attacks. France, November 13th, 2015. In the city of light where romance dances along the Seine and history whispers through ancient stone, a darkness descended that would stain the streets with blood. Paris, vibrant and alive, was a beacon of culture. Its cafes buzzing with laughter, its theaters alive with music. But on the night of November 13th, 2015, that vibrancy was shattered by a series of coordinated terrorist attacks orchestrated by the Islamic State, ISIS. A name synonymous with fear. 130 lives were stolen, hundreds more scarred, in a night that would redefine a nation's sense of safety. This is the story of the Paris attacks, a chilling testament to the reach of extremism and the resilience of a city that refused to break. The evening began like any other in Paris, the air crisp with autumn's touch. At the Stade de France, thousands cheered a soccer match between France and Germany. The stands a sea of flags and smiles. In the 10th and 11th arrondissements, cafes and restaurants hummed with conversation, glasses clinking and toasts to life. At the Bataclan, a historic concert hall, the American rock band Eagles of death metal played to a packed crowd, their riffs electrifying. Parisians, young and old, were out embracing the city they loved, unaware that a meticulously planned horror was unfolding in the shadows. The attackers, 9 men bound by a twisted ideology, moved with chilling precision. Most were French or Belgian nationals, radicalized in Europe's underbelly, some trained in Syria's war-torn deserts. Led by Abdelhamid Abba Aoud, a Belgian-Moroccan extremist, they were soldiers of ISIS, their mission to sow terror and claim lives in the name of a warped cause. Armed with AK-47S, explosives, and suicide vests, they split into 3 teams, each assigned a target. Their plan was simple but devastating: strike simultaneously, maximize chaos, and leave Paris reeling. At 9:20 p.m., the first explosions rocked the Stade de France. 3 suicide bombers detonated their vests outside the stadium, their blasts shaking the stands. 1 civilian, Manuel Dias, a 63-year-old Portuguese driver, was killed, his life extinguished in an instant. The crowd, confused, felt the tremors but continued cheering, unaware of the horror unfolding. President François Hollande, present at the match, was whisked away as security scrambled to respond. The bombers had failed to breach the stadium, but their message was clear: nowhere was safe. Minutes later, in the heart of Paris, the second wave began. Gunmen in a black Seat Leon car prowled the 10th and 11th arrondissement, their rifles spitting death into crowded cafes and restaurants. At Le Carillon Bar, patrons sipped drinks on the terrace, their laughter silenced by a hail of bullets. Across the street, Le Petit Cambodge restaurant became a slaughterhouse, diners falling as glass shattered. The attackers moved methodically, spraying gunfire into La Casa Nostra Pizzeria and Café Bon Bière, their targets chosen for their vibrancy, their openness. In minutes, 39 lay dead, their meals unfinished, their lives stolen. The deadliest assault struck the Bataclan, where 1,500 fans swayed to the music. At 9:40 p.m., 3 gunmen burst through the doors, their Kalashnikovs blazing. The crowd, caught in a wave of panic, scrambled for cover as bullets tore through the air. The attackers, faces uncovered, shouted slogans of jihad, their voices cold with purpose. They fired indiscriminately, mowing down dozens in the pit below the stage. Some lay dead, their bodies pressed against the blood-soaked floor, praying for survival. Others hid in closets under seats, their hearts pounding as death stalked closer. Gunmen took hostages, herding survivors to the upper balcony. For 3 hours, they held the Bataclan in a grip of terror, taunting their captives, rigging explosives, and preparing for a final stand. Outside, Paris descended into chaos. Sirens wailed, streets emptied, and news broadcasts carried the weight of a city under siege. Social media buzzed with hashtags like Porte Verte, Parisians offering shelter to those stranded. The world watched, breathless, as France faced its darkest hour since World War. French police, backed by elite raid and BRI units, surrounded the Bataclan. Negotiations failed. The attackers had no intention of surrendering. At 12:20 a.m. and for 10 hours, police stormed the venue. The assault was swift, brutal. 2 gunmen detonated their suicide vests, their bodies disintegrating in flashes of fire. The third was shot dead, his weapon silenced. The hall, once alive with music, was now a battlefield. 90 lay dead, their bodies scattered among shattered instruments and broken dreams. Survivors stumbled out, their faces etched with shock, their clothes stained with the blood of friends. Across Paris, the toll was staggering. 130 dead, over 350 injured. The Stade de France, the cafes, the Bataclan, each site a wound in the city's heart. The victims were diverse: students, artists, parents, tourists, their lives intersecting in a moment of tragedy. Among them were Nohemia Gonzalez, a 23-year-old American design student, Tomas Ayat, a 32-year-old music producer, and Anne-Laure Arubo, a 36-year-old lawyer. Their stories, vibrant and varied, were now part of a collective grief that gripped the world. The investigation launched with urgency. French authorities declared a state of emergency, borders tightened, and Paris became a fortress. Surveillance footage, abandoned vehicles, and discarded phones traced the attackers' movements. The black Seat Leon, found in a suburb, contained spent casings and a fingerprint linking to Salah Abdeslam, a 26-year-old Belgian who had fled the Batala clan. Aba'aoud, the mastermind, was tracked to a St. Denis apartment. On November 18th, police raided the hideout, killing Aba'aoud in a fierce gunfight that left the building in ruins. The probe revealed a sophisticated network. The attackers had used encrypted apps like Telegram to coordinate their plans months in the making. Some had slipped into Europe amid the 2015 refugee crisis, exploiting open borders. ISIS claimed responsibility, calling the attacks a response to French airstrikes in Syria. The group's reach, from Raqqa to Brussels, exposed gaps in European intelligence. Abdeslam, the sole surviving attacker, became Europe's most wanted man, his face plastered across borders. The manhunt for Abdeslam stretched months, each lead a flicker of hope. In March 2016, Belgian police cornered him in Molenbeek, a Brussels neighborhood known as a hotbed of radicalization. After a tense standoff, he was captured, his arrest a breakthrough in a case that had gripped the continent. His trial, alongside others linked to the attacks, began years later, a sprawling legal battle that peeled back layers of extremism. In 2022, Abdeslam was sentenced to life without parole, his silence in court a final act of defiance. The trials were a reckoning, but justice could not heal Paris's wounds. The Bataclan reopened in 2016, Sting's performance a defiant reclaiming of space, yet the scars remained. Memorials sprouted across the city, plaques at cafes, a mural near the Bataclan, each name a vow to remember. Survivors formed support groups, their stories of guilt and resilience shared in quiet rooms. Families grieved, their loss a private ache amid public mourning. France intensified airstrikes on ISIS, its military resolve hardened, but the question lingered: how could such hatred take root? The attacks exposed Europe's vulnerabilities, intelligence failures, lax borders, and the radicalization of young men in marginalized communities demanded answers. The EU tightened security, implementing stricter surveillance and data sharing protocols. Debates raged over civil liberties, the balance between safety and freedom, a tightrope. The refugee crisis, already divisive, fueled xenophobia, far-right groups exploiting fear to sow discord. Yet Paris fought back with unity. Vigils at Place de la République, candles flickering against the night, a city refusing to bow. The cultural impact was profound. Art, music, and literature grappled with the tragedy, from novels like Edouard Louis' History of Violence to songs honoring the fallen. The Bataclan, once a symbol of joy, became a pilgrimage site, its stage a testament to survival. Parisians returned to cafes, their defiance a quiet rebellion against fear. Je suis Paris, they declared, echoing the solidarity of Je suis Charlie after the 2015 Hebdo attacks. The world rallied, from New York's lit-up skyscrapers to Sydney's glowing opera house, a global embrace for a wounded city. But the pain was personal. Families like that of Nohemi Gonzalez channeled grief into advocacy, creating scholarships in her name. Survivors like Julian Pierce, who escaped the Bataclan, spoke of guilt. Why them, not others? The psychological toll was immense. PTSD, a silent epidemic. Paris forever changed, carried a new weight. Its streets a little warier, its heart a little heavier. The attackers sought to divide, but their legacy was unity. A city that mourned together, rebuilt together, loved together. ISIS's shadow lingered, its propaganda inspiring lone wolves across Europe. The 2016 Nice attack, the 2017 Manchester bombing, each a reminder of the ongoing threat. France bolstered its counterterrorism, Operation Sentinel, deploying soldiers to patrol streets, a surreal sight in a city of art. The trials, concluding in 2022, convicted 20 men, but closure remained elusive. Abdeslam's life sentence, Abayoud's death, justice, yes, but not peace. The 130 names read aloud each November 13th are a prayer, a promise, a wound that never fully heals. As the rain falls outside, it mirrors the tears of a city that endured. The Bataclan's music plays on, the cafes hum again, but the echoes of that night remain. Paris, unbowed, stands as a testament to resilience. Its light dimmed but never extinguished. Stay with us as the shadows shift and we unravel another tale, a story of corruption and betrayal, where justice came at a cost too high to bear. The past is watching, and it has more to tell. Part 4, the murder of Kevin Moraes, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, 2015. In the heart of Kuala Lumpur, where skyscrapers pierce the tropical sky and the pulse of ambition drives a nation, a man fought a quiet war against corruption. Kevin Moraes, a 55-year-old deputy public prosecutor, was a figure of integrity, his name whispered with respect in Malaysia's legal circles. But on September 4th, 2015, his crusade came to a brutal end, his body hidden in a way that spoke of calculated cruelty. This is the story of Kevin Moraes' murder, a chilling tale of greed, betrayal, and a system that turned on one of its own. As the rain falls, let us step into a world where truth was a dangerous pursuit and justice came at the ultimate cost. Kevin Moraes was no ordinary prosecutor. With decades in Malaysia's Attorney General's chambers, he had built a reputation as a dogged investigator, unafraid to tackle the powerful. His office, cluttered with files, was a fortress of evidence against those who thought themselves untouchable. In 2015, Moraes was deep into a high-stakes case, one that threatened to unravel a web of corruption stretching from medical fraud to military elites. His target, Dr. Kanan Svayeswaran, a military pathologist whose fraudulent practices had bled Malaysia's institutions dry. To Moraes, this was more than a case. It was a mission to protect the vulnerable from those who profited off deceit. Kanan was no small player, a decorated officer with connections in Malaysia's defense establishment. He wielded influence that shielded his crimes. For years, he had falsified medical reports, certifying unfit soldiers as healthy for duty in exchange for bribes. His schemes extended to private hospitals where inflated invoices and kickbacks enriched him further, but Moraes was closing in. His investigation meticulous, his evidence damning. Kanan's empire was crumbling, and with it, his carefully curated facade. Exposure meant ruin, financial, social, and legal. And Kanan was not a man to go quietly. The morning of September 4 began like any other for Moraes. He left his modest apartment in Kuala Lumpur, his briefcase heavy with documents, his mind likely on the case that consumed him. Driving his government-issued Proton Perdana, he navigated the city's bustling streets, unaware that eyes were watching. A white SUV, its windows tinted, trailed him for a distance. Inside were men hired for a singular purpose: to silence Kevin Moraes forever. Ganan, desperate to protect his secrets, had turned to the underworld, contracting assassins to eliminate the one man who could destroy him. At a busy intersection, the SUV made its move. It rammed Moraes' car, forcing him to a stop. Before he could react, armed men swarmed, dragging him from the driver's seat. Moraes fought, his instinct sharp, but he was outnumbered. Bound and gagged, he was thrown into the SUV, his car abandoned as a decoy. The attackers drove to a secluded spot where the unthinkable unfolded. Moraes was beaten, his body subjected to a brutality that spoke of personal vendetta. His life ended there, but the killers weren't done. To erase their crime, they stuffed his body into an oil drum, filled it with wet cement, and dumped it in a swamp on the city's outskirts. A grotesque attempt to bury the truth along with the man who sought it. Kuala Lumpur woke to whispers of a missing prosecutor. Moraes' colleagues, alarmed by his absence, alerted police. His car, found abandoned, was the first clue, its interior pristine but for traces of a struggle. Surveillance cameras, ubiquitous in the capital, captured the white SUV, its license plate a thread in a rapidly unraveling mystery. The footage showed Moraes' car being forced off the road, the assailant's movement swift and practical. Within days, police traced the SUV to a known criminal, a low-level enforcer with ties to Malaysia's underworld. Under interrogation, he cracked, naming accomplices and pointing to a name that sent shockwaves: Dr. Kunan Svesvaren. The investigation moved with relentless precision. Phone records linked Kunan to the hired killers, revealing a trail of calls and payments that screamed guilt. The breakthrough came when divers scoured the swamp, guided by the enforcer's confession. On September 16, they found the drum, its concrete cracked but intact. Inside was Moraes' body, preserved in a tomb of cement, his face frozen in defiance. Forensic analysis confirmed blunt force trauma and strangulation, the violence a stark contrast to the clinical planning of the cover-up. DNA traces and tire marks tied the scene to the SUV, sealing the case against Kunan's network. Kunan was arrested at his lavish home, his composure crumbling as handcuffs clicked. A man accustomed to control, he now faced the weight of justice. His accomplices, 6 in total, were rounded up, thugs for hire whose loyalty to Kunan's money dissolved under pressure. The trial, beginning in 2016, was a spectacle. Malaysia's eyes fixed on a courtroom where power and corruption collided. The prosecution's case was airtight. Moraes had been targeted for his work, his death, a desperate act to silence an investigation that threatened Kunan's freedom. Bank transfers, encrypted messages, and the drum itself painted a picture of premeditation. The defense argued Kunan was framed, a victim of rivals exploiting his wealth. They claimed Moraes' other cases against politicians and tycoons made him a target for many, not just Kunan. But the evidence was unrelenting. A key witness, one of the assassins, testified to Kunan's orders, describing meetings where the pathologist outlined Moraes' habits with chilling detail. The drum, a symbol of the crime's audacity, loomed large in the courtroom, its presence a grim reminder of Moraes' fate. In 2017, Kunan and his accomplices were convicted of murder. Kunan sentenced to death by hanging, a rare penalty in Malaysia reserved for the gravest crimes. The verdict was a victory, but it came too late for Kevin Moraes. His family, devastated, spoke of a man who lived for justice, his humor and warmth overshadowed by his relentless duty. His brother, Richard, described him as a warrior with a pen, his battles fought in courtrooms, not battlefields. Colleagues mourned a mentor, their tributes filling newspapers. Malaysia, a nation grappling with systemic corruption, saw Moraes as a martyr, his death a clarion call for reform. Protests erupted, demanding protections for whistleblowers and prosecutors, while editorials decried the rot Kunan represented. The case exposed Malaysia's underbelly. Kunan's connections to the military and medical sectors raised questions about unchecked power. How had a man so corrupt risen so high? The scandal touched nerves, especially amid the 1MDB financial controversy rocking the nation. Moraes' investigation, though focused on Kunan, hinted at broader networks, files on his desk suggesting probes into figures still unnamed. His death silenced those inquiries, leaving whispers of conspiracies that linger unresolved. Malaysia tightened laws on public sector fraud, but skepticism remained. Could the system change when it had failed a man like Moraes? Kuala Lumpur's streets, vibrant and chaotic, carried a new caution. Moraes' face, once a private one, became a symbol, plastered on posters and memorials. His old office, now a shrine of sorts, held his photo, a quiet vow to continue his work. The swamp, once a forgotten patch, became a site of pilgrimage. For his family, the loss was a wound that time could not heal. His nieces and nephews, too young to grasp his mission, grew up with stories of an uncle who stood against giants and paid the ultimate price. Kunan, awaiting execution, became a footnote, his name synonymous with disgrace. His accomplices serving life sentences faded into obscurity, their greed a cautionary tale, but Moraes' legacy endured. Legal reforms sparked by his death empowered prosecutors, while anti-corruption units gained teeth. Young lawyers, inspired by his courage, entered the field, their pens sharper for his sacrifice. Malaysia, though scarred, found resolve in his story, a reminder that one man's truth could challenge an empire of lies. The broader impact rippled beyond borders. International media, from BBC to Al Jazeera, covered the case, framing it as a warning for nations battling corruption. In Malaysia, the case fueled distrust in institutions, yet also hope. Hope that Moraes' death was not in vain. Civil society groups, emboldened, pushed for transparency, their rallies a chorus of voices he might have joined. The swamp, now drained and marked, stood as a metaphor. Even the darkest secrets, buried deep, could be brought to light. Yet questions lingered. Were there others behind Kunan, puppeteers untouched by the trial? Moraes' files, some rumored destroyed, hinted at names too powerful to pursue. His death, so public, felt like a message to prosecutors, to reformers, anyone daring to challenge the status quo. Malaysia's courts, though victorious in Kunan's conviction, faced scrutiny. Could they protect those who followed Moraes' path? The rain, falling softly outside, seemed to carry these unanswered doubts, each drop a whisper of truths still hidden. Kevin Moraes' story is one of courage and consequence. A man who lived quietly, worked tirelessly, and died brutally. He left a nation to grapple with its reflection. Kuala Lumpur, with its gleaming towers and shadowed alleys, moves on, but his absence is felt, a void where integrity once stood. The drum, now evidence in a vault, is a relic of a crime that shook a country, its weight a reminder of the cost of truth. As we leave this tale, the rain grows heavier, mourning a man who dared to shine light where darkness reigned. Stay with us as the shadows twist and we unravel another story, a tale of a son's resentment and a mother's love betrayed, where the bonds of family became a noose. The past is restless, and its secrets are far from done. Part 5. The Murder of Sen Tianyin, Fuzhou, China, 2015. In the ancient city of Fuzhou, where tradition weaves through modern streets and the weight of expectation shapes lives, a mother's love became her undoing. Sen Tianyin, a 45-year-old school teacher, was the embodiment of sacrifice, her days spent nurturing her son, Wu, toward a future she believed would shine. But in July 2015, that love was betrayed in a way that chilled China to its core. A son's resentment turned deadly, his heart poisoned by pressures too heavy to bear. Is the story of Sen Tianyin's murder, a haunting descent into filial betrayal, where the bonds of family became a noose, and a nation was forced to confront the shadows of its own ambitions. As the rain falls, let us step into a tale where love and loathing collided, leaving only devastation. Sen Tianyin was a woman of quiet strength. A middle school teacher in Fuzhou, she was respected, her classroom a haven for students navigating China's relentless academic grind. Her life revolved around her only child, Wu, a 22-year-old student at Peking University, one of China's most prestigious institutions. To Sen, Wu was her pride, her purpose. Every late night grading papers, every yuan saved was for him. Like many Chinese parents, she poured her dreams into her son, believing education was the key to a better life, but beneath her smiles, a tension simmered. Wu, brilliant but brittle, felt the weight of her expectations like a chain. Each achievement, a reminder of a debt he could never repay. Wu's world was one of pressure. Peking University demanded excellence, its halls filled with China's brightest minds. Admitted through sheer intellect, Wu excelled in computer science, his professors praising his potential. Yet, he was withdrawn, his social circle small, his thoughts often dark. Sin's constant encouragement, her calls, her visits, her reminders to study harder, felt like suffocation. She had pushed him since childhood, enrolling him in extra classes, monitoring his grades, envisioning a future where he'd lift their family from modest roots to prominence. To Wu, her love was control, her dreams a cage. By 2015, his resentment had festered into something sinister, a seed of hatred planted deep within. The summer of 2015 was stifling in Fuzhou. Wu, home from university, seemed distant, his mood volatile. Chen noticed but attributed it to stress, urging him to focus on his studies. She planned a visit to his dorm in Beijing, hoping to reconnect, to remind him of the path she had paved. Unbeknownst to her, Wu was plotting a plan so cold, so calculated it defied the bond they shared. He had decided to kill her, to free himself from the mother he blamed for his inner turmoil. The motive wasn't greed or passion, it was a twisted rebellion against the expectations that defined his life. On July 10th, Wu lured Sen to his residence in Fuzhou, a small apartment near the university where he stayed during breaks. He told her he needed help with a project, a lie she believed without question. Sen arrived, her bag packed with homemade meals, her heart full of hope. The apartment was sparse, its walls bare, the air heavy with unspoken tension. Wu greeted her, his smile forced, his hands trembling. They sat, talked, the conversation stilted. Sen, ever the mother, asked about his grades, his plans, unaware that each word tightened the noose Wu had prepared. As evening fell, Wu acted. He picked up a dumbbell, its weight familiar from his workouts, and approached Sen from behind. She was unpacking food, her back turned, her trust absolute. With a single brutal swing, he struck her head. The impact was sickening, a crack that echoed in the silent room. Sen collapsed, blood pooling beneath her, her life extinguished in an instant. Wu stood over her, his breath ragged, the reality of his act sinking in. There was no rage in that moment, only a chilling detachment. A son who had crossed a line from which there was no return. Wu's next moves were methodical, as if he'd rehearsed them. He wrapped Sen's body in plastic sheets, sealing it with tape to contain the odor. The apartment, small and isolated, became her tomb. He dragged her to a closet, hiding her among his belongings, her presence reduced to a secret he'd guard. To the world, Sen was still alive. Wu used her phone to send messages to family, mimicking her tone, claiming she was traveling abroad. He accessed her bank accounts, withdrawing funds to fuel a lifestyle he'd never known. Lavish dinners, designer clothes, a fleeting taste of freedom. For months he lived this lie, his mother's body mere feet away, a grotesque reminder of his crime. Fuzhou, unaware, continued its rhythm. Sen's colleagues grew concerned when she missed classes, her absence unusual for a woman so dedicated. Her relatives, receiving sporadic texts, sensed something amiss. Her sister Lee pressed Wu for answers, his evasions raising alarms. By early 2016, Lee contacted police, her intuition screaming that Sen was not abroad, but in danger. Authorities descended on Wu's apartment, their knock unanswered at first. When they entered, the air was stale, the closet's contents a horrifying revelation. Sen's body, decomposed but preserved, was found wrapped in plastic, her identity confirmed by dental records. The scene was a nightmare. A mother betrayed, her son the monster. Wu was arrested at a cafe, his demeanor eerily calm. Under interrogation, he confessed, his voice devoid of remorse. "She pushed me too far," he said, his words a chilling indictment of the pressure he felt. He described Sin's expectations as a burden, her love as a chain he had to break. The motive stunned investigators. Not money, not anger, but a warped desire to escape the life she'd built for him. Wu's confession revealed a mind unmoored, his brilliance twisted into a logic that justified matricide. He admitted to the fraud, the texts, the months of deception, each act a step deeper into darkness. The investigation was meticulous. Forensic analysis confirmed the dumbbell as the murder weapon, its surface bearing traces of Sin's blood. Phone records exposed Wu's manipulation. The texts sent from Sin's phone, meticulously crafted. Bank transactions traced his spending, a trail of extravagance funded by her savings. Surveillance footage from ATMs showed Wu, his face blank, withdrawing cash as if nothing had changed. The apartment, a crime scene frozen in time, held no signs of a struggle, only the quiet horror of a son's betrayal. Wu's classmates, questioned, described him as aloof, brilliant but cold. His isolation a warning no one heeded. The trial, beginning in 2018, gripped China. Peking University, a symbol of excellence, was tarnished by association, its name linked to a crime that defied comprehension. The prosecution painted Wu as a calculating killer, his actions premeditated, his deception a masterclass in cruelty. They presented the dumbbell, the plastic sheets, the bank records, each a nail in his coffin. Wu's defense argued psychological strain, citing China's cutthroat education system and Sen's relentless pressure. They claimed he snapped, his mind fractured by years of expectation. But the court saw no mitigation in his cold precision. In 2020, Wu was convicted of murder and fraud, sentenced to death, a verdict met with somber approval. The courtroom, packed with Sen's family and friends, was a sea of grief. Her sister Lai spoke of Sen's kindness, her belief in Wu's potential, her love that never wavered. She gave him everything, Lee wept, and he took her life. Wu, expressionless, offered no apology, his silence a final betrayal. In January 2024, he was executed, his name erased from the family he destroyed. China, a nation built on filial piety, recoiled at the violation, the case a wound in its cultural heart. Sen Xianyin's death sparked a reckoning. China's education system, a pressure cooker of exams and expectations, came under scrutiny. Parents, driven by love, were questioned. How much was too much? The tiger mom archetype, once celebrated, was reevaluated. Stories of student suicides and breakdowns, flooding media. Mental health, long stigmatized, gained attention, with calls for counseling in schools. Peking University introduced support programs, its campus a quieter place haunted by Wu's shadow. Fuzhou streets where Sen once walked carried a new weight, her absence a reminder of dreams turned deadly. The case resonated beyond China. International outlets, from CNN to The Guardian, framed it as a cautionary tale of ambition unchecked. In Asia, where parental pressure is a cultural norm, families reflected on their own dynamics, the line between support and suffocation blurred. Sen's school, now a memorial site, held annual vigils, students leaving notes for a teacher they'd never forget. Her colleagues, retired but resolute, pushed for reforms, their voices echoing her legacy. Lee, Seon's sister, became an advocate, her grief channeled into change, ensuring no mother would suffer as Sen did. Yet mysteries lingered. Wu's detachment, his ability to live with his mother's body, hinted at a psyche beyond repair. Psychologists debated his state, sociopathy, or a mind broken by pressure. Sen's files found in her home included letters to Wu, each one a plea for connection, unread by the son she loved. Were there signs she missed, moments where she could have eased her expectation? Fuzhou, a city of rivers and history, grappled with guilt, its community questioning how a boy so bright could fall so far. Wu's execution closed a chapter, but not the pain. Sen's grave, modest and adorned with flowers, is a pilgrimage for those who knew her. Her students, now adults, carry her lessons, their lives shaped by a teacher who saw their potential. China, forever changed, debates the cost of its dreams, the case a mirror to its soul. The rain outside falls harder, each drop a tear for Sen Tianyin, a mother whose love was her strength and her downfall. Her story's a warning. Even the closest bonds can break when resentment festers in silence. Stay with us as the shadows deepen and we unravel another tale. A story of a marriage undone by control, where love became a battlefield and a woman paid the ultimate price. The past is not silent, and its truths are waiting to be told. Part 6, The Murder of Tara Edwards, Melbourne, Australia, 2015. In the quiet suburbs of Melbourne, where eucalyptus scents the air and families build lives behind picket fences, a darkness festered behind closed doors. Tara Edwards, a 35-year-old mother of two, was the heart of her community. Her laughter a melody, her kindness a beacon. But on November 26, 2015, that light was extinguished in a brutal act that shattered a family and stunned a city. Her husband, Christopher Edwards, a man who seemed ordinary to all, harbored a rage that would unravel in blood. This is the story of Tara Edwards' murder. A chilling descent into domestic betrayal where love became a battlefield and the facade of normalcy hit a monster. As the rain falls, step into a tale where trust was a lie and the cost of silence was a life. Tara Edwards was a woman who radiated warmth. A part-time nurse, she balanced raising her children, Emma, 8, and Liam, 5, with a devotion that left friends in awe. Her home in Melbourne's northern suburbs was a hub of activity, filled with the chaos of family life and the comfort of routine. Tara's smile, bright and unguarded, masked the strain of her marriage. Christopher Edwards, her 38-year-old husband, was a truck driver, his days spent on long hauls, his evenings quiet but tense. To neighbors, he was unremarkable, polite, reserved, a man who kept to himself. But behind the walls of their modest brick house, a storm was brewing, one Tara could not escape. The marriage, once built on love, had frayed over years. Christopher's controlling nature surfaced slowly, his jealousy a creeping shadow. He monitored Tara's phone, questioned her friendships, and bristled at her independence. Arguments, once rare, became frequent, his temper flaring over trivialities. A late dinner, a call from a colleague. Tara confided in her sister, Rachel, about the emotional toll, her voice heavy with exhaustion. She wanted out, but fear of losing her children and the hope that Christopher could change kept her tethered. She endured his verbal abuse, his accusations of infidelity, believing she could shield Emma and Liam from the worst. She was wrong. By 2015, Christopher's control had tightened into obsession. Tara's attempts to assert herself, joining a book club, taking extra shifts, enraged him. He saw her every move as a betrayal, her strength a threat to his dominance. Friends noticed Tara's spark dimming, her laughter less frequent, but she deflected concern with a smile. Behind her bravery, she was trapped, her plans to leave stalled by Christopher's manipulations. Promises of therapy, tearful apologies that never lasted, November, brought a breaking point. Tara, emboldened, told Rachel she was ready to file for separation, her resolve firm. Christopher sensed a shift, and his rage, long simmering, reached a deadly boil. The night of November 26 was deceptively calm. Melbourne's summer hummed outside, cicadas singing in the dusk. Tara was home, the children had a sleepover, the house unusually still. Christopher returned from a haul, his mood dark, his eyes cold. An argument erupted over what no one would ever know for sure. Perhaps Tara mentioned leaving, or perhaps his paranoia conjured another imagined slight. What followed was a descent into violence that would haunt Melbourne's quiet streets. Christopher, fueled by jealousy and insecurity, attacked. He struck Tara with a blunt object, a heavy wrench from his toolbox, its impact shattering her skull. She fought, her nails clawing at him, but he overpowered her, his hands closing around her throat. Strangulation sealed her fate, her body collapsing in the living room, her life stolen in minutes. Christopher's actions after the murder were as calculated as they were chilling. He cleaned the scene, scrubbing blood from the carpet, disposing of the wrench in a neighbor's bin. Tara's body, still warm, was wrapped in a tarp and loaded into his truck. Under cover of night, he drove to a creek on Melbourne's outskirts, a place they'd once picnicked as a family. There, he dumped her, the water, swallowing her form. His betrayal complete, turning home, he crafted a lie. Tara had left him, stormed out after a fight, her whereabouts unknown. He called her phone, leaving voicemails of feigned concern, each word a performance to mask his guilt. Morning broke, and Melbourne stirred, unaware of the tragedy. Tara's absence raised alarms when she missed a shift at the hospital. Rachel, sensing dread, contacted police, her voice trembling as she recounted Tara's plans to leave. Officers visited the Edwards home, where Christopher played the worried husband, his story polished but brittle. His calm demeanor, his two perfect answers sparked suspicion. A search of the house revealed traces of blood, faint but damning in the living room. Forensic teams descended, their ultraviolet lights exposing a crime scene scrubbed but not erased. Phone records showed Christopher's calls to Tara's phone made hours after her death, a timeline that unraveled his alibi. The investigation gained momentum. Neighbors reported hearing shouts that night, a detail Christopher couldn't explain. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station captured his truck heading toward the creek, its timestamp aligning with the murder. Divers scoured the waterway, their search grim but determined. On November 29, they found Tara's body, tangled in reeds, her face frozen. in a silent scream. Autopsy results confirm blunt force trauma and strangulation, the brutality a stark contrast to the love she'd embodied. DNA under her nails matched Christopher, sealing his fate. Christopher was arrested at his workplace, his colleagues stunned as handcuffs clicked in interrogation, his facade cracked. Faced with the evidence, blood, footage, DNA, he confessed, his voice flat, devoid of remorse. "She was going to leave me," he muttered, as if that justified the unthinkable. He described his rage, his fear of losing control, his belief that Tara's independence was a betrayal. The confession was a window into a mind warped by entitlement, where love was possession and violence was his answer. Prosecutors charged him with murder, their case built on a foundation of forensic precision and his own words. The trial, beginning in mid-2016, was a crucible of grief and revelation. Melbourne's courthouse, usually a place of routine, became a stage for a tragedy that gripped the city. The prosecution painted Christopher as a predator, his abuse escalating from words to fists, his murder premeditated in its ferocity. They presented the wrench recovered from the bin, its surface bearing Tara's blood. Photos of the crime scene, stark and unflinching, silenced the courtroom. Rachel testified, her voice breaking as she described Tara's fear, her sister's dream of a life free from Christopher's shadow. "She was so strong," Rachel wept, "but he broke her." The defense argued emotional distress, claiming Christopher snapped under marital strain. They pointed to his lack of prior violence, his confession as evidence of remorse, but the jury saw through the plea. Tara's friends took the stand, their stories a chorus of her vibrancy, her love for her children, her plans to start anew. Emma and Liam, too young to testify, were present in every word. Their loss, a wound the courtroom felt. Christopher sat, his face unreadable. His silence, a betrayal as stark as his crime. The contrast was devastating. Tara's life, so full, against a man who deemed it his to take. In August 2016, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty of murder. The courtroom exhaled, a collective release of anguish and relief. Sentencing followed the judge's words, a condemnation of Christopher's cruelty. "You robbed a family of a mother, a community of a friend," he intoned, sentencing Christopher to life without parole. Tara's family, seated in the front row, clung to each other, their victory hollow against the void she left. Christopher showed no emotion, his eyes fixed on the floor, a man already fading into the obscurity of his punishment. Melbourne reeled in the aftermath. Tara's story, splashed across newspapers, sparked a reckoning on domestic violence. Australia, a nation priding itself on mateship, confronted its hidden epidemic. 1 in 4 women facing abuse, many in silence. Vigils filled parks, candles flickering for Tara and countless others. Her children, now with Rachel, faced a future without their mother's embrace. Their laughter quieter, their dreams shadowed. Emma, old enough to understand, wrote letters to Tara, left at her grave, each word a plea for connection. Liam, too young to grasp the loss, clung to her photo, his questions unanswered. The case reshaped policy. Victoria's government, spurred by public outcry, bolstered funding for domestic violence shelters, training police to spot warning signs. Campaigns like Shine the Light emerge, urging victims to seek help. Their billboards are a reminder of Tara's smile. Community groups led by survivors push for education, teaching youth that love is not control. Tara's hospital, where she'd cared for patients, named a wing in her honor, its halls a testament to her compassion. Melbourne's suburbs, once idyllic, carried a new caution. Neighbors watching closer, their trust thinner. Christopher's family, distant and shocked, struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the killer he became. His parents, elderly and frail, visited him in prison, their visits brief, their words few. He offered no apologies. His letters to Emma and Liam returned unopened. Locked in Barwon prison, he became a ghost, his name a whisper of shame. The creek, now a memorial site, drew mourners, its waters carrying flowers downstream, each petal a prayer for Tara. Her book club, still meeting, left her chair empty, a silent tribute to a friend who loved stories. The broader impact rippled globally. International media, from BBC to the New York Times, framed Tara's death as a universal tragedy, a warning of abuse's hidden toll. In Australia, domestic violence helplines saw spikes in calls, women inspired by Tara's courage to break free. Her story, adapted into documentaries, reached audiences worldwide, its message clear: silence is deadly. Rachel, now an advocate, spoke at rallies, her grief a fire that fueled change. Tara's voice lives in us, she declared, her words a vow to fight for those still trapped. Yet questions lingered. How had Christopher's rage gone unnoticed? Neighbors recalled his quiet demeanor, but none saw the warning signs. His clenched fists, his late-night pacing. Tara's journals found in her bedside drawer hinted at her fear, entries scrawled in haste. "I don't know how much longer I can do this." Could friends have intervened, or was her silence a shield for her children? Melbourne, grappling with guilt, vowed to listen closer, to see the unseen. The case, a mirror to society, asked, how many Taras walk among us, their pain hidden behind smiles? Tara Edwards' legacy is one of love and loss. Her children, growing under Rachel's care, carry her spirit. Emma's kindness, Liam's curiosity, echoes of a mother they'll never forget. Melbourne, forever changed, honors her in quiet ways, a plaque at the creek, a scholarship in her name. The rain, falling softly outside, seems to mourn her. Each drop, a whisper of a life cut short. Tara's story is a warning. Love, twisted by control, can become a weapon, and the cost of ignoring it is measured in lives. Stay with us as the shadows grow darker and we unravel another tale, a story of terror that shook a continent, where faith and fear collided in a night of unimaginable horror. The past is relentless, and its secrets are far from buried. Part 7, The Thalys Train Attack, Europe, August 21st, 2015. In the heart of Europe, where high-speed trains weave through borders and connect lives, a journey of leisure became a battlefield. The Thalys train, a sleek symbol of modernity, carried passengers from Amsterdam to Paris, their minds on vacations, reunions, or quiet escapes. But on August 21, 2015, one man boarded with a mission to kill, his heart consumed by a twisted ideology. Ayoub El-Kazani, a 25-year-old Moroccan, turned a routine trip into a nightmare, only to be stopped by the courage of strangers. This is the story of the Thalys train attack, a chilling tale of terror thwarted, where ordinary people became heroes and a continent faced the shadow of extremism. As the rain falls, step into a world where fear met defiance and the line between life and death was a moment's choice. The Thalys train, number 9364, departed Amsterdam at 3:17 p.m., its red-silver cars gliding through the Dutch countryside. On board were 554 passengers, tourists, families, professionals, their chatter filling the air. In car 12, a first-class carriage, sat Spencer Stone, a 23-year-old U.S. Air Force medic, Alec Scarlatos, a 22-year-old Oregon National Guardsman, and Anthony Sadler, a 23-year-old college student. The three Americans, lifelong friends, were on a European backpacking trip, their laughter a contrast to the quiet tension brewing elsewhere. Also aboard was Mark Mogalian, a 51-year-old Franco-American professor traveling with his wife, and Damien A., a 28-year-old French banker heading to Paris for work. It was a diverse crowd, united by chance, unaware that fate had marked their journey. Ayoub Elazani boarded in Brussels, his ticket unremarkable, his appearance blending with the crowd. Clad in a white shirt and dark pants, he carried a backpack heavy with death, a Kalashnikov rifle, 9 magazines with 270 rounds, a Luger pistol, a box cutter, and a bottle of gasoline. To the casual observer, he was just another passenger, his face betraying nothing. But Elazani was no ordinary traveler. Radicalized in Spain's Algeciras mosques, he had drifted through Europe, his path crossing with jihadist networks. In May 2015, he traveled to Syria, training with ISIS, his mind steeped in their call to violence. Directed by Abdelhamid Abaoud, mastermind of the later Paris attacks, El-Kazani was a soldier of terror, his target, the Thalys, a symbol of Western freedom. The train sped through Belgium, its speed nearing 186 miles per hour, the landscape a blur of green and gray. At 5:35 p.m., as it crossed into France near Oigny, El-Kazani made his move. He entered the restroom in car 12, locking the door. There he prepared, strapping the Kalashnikov to his chest, checking the pistol, his heart pounding with purpose. His plan was simple: emerge, fire, and kill as many as possible a lone wolf striking at the heart of Europe. But chance and human courage would rewrite his script. A French passenger, known only as Damien A., approached the restroom, noticing a delay. When the door opened, he glimpsed El Kazani's rifle and lunged, grappling with the armed man. The struggle was brief but fierce, El Kazani overpowering Damien, who fled to warn others. The commotion drew Mark Mogalayan, who ran toward the danger. As El Kazani emerged, rifle raised, Mogalayan tackled him, wrenching the Kalashnikov away. A shot rang out, El Kazani's pistol firing a bullet that pierced Mogalayan's neck, blood spilling as he collapsed. The attacker reclaimed his rifle, turning toward car 12, his eyes cold with intent. When the carriage passengers froze, the sound of gunfire shattering the calm. Spencer Stone, seated nearby, reacted on instinct. "Let's go!" he shouted to Scarlatus and Sadler, charging toward El Kazani. The gunman fired, but the rifle jammed. A stroke of luck that saved dozens. Stone, unarmed, reached El Kazani, tackling him to the floor. The two grappled, El Kazani slashing with the box cutter, slicing Stone's thumb and neck. Scarlatos joined, seizing the rifle, striking El Kazani's head. Sadler followed, pinning the attacker's limbs, their combined strength overwhelming him. Chris Norman, a 62-year-old British consultant, rushed to help, securing El Kazani's arms with a tie. The fight, lasting seconds, felt eternal, each moment a battle for survival. El Kazani was subdued, his body limp, his mission crushed. Stone, bloodied but steady, turned to Mogalian, applying pressure to his neck wound. His medic training saving a life. Passengers, stunned, began to move, some fleeing, others aiding the wounded. The train, rerouted to Arras, France, screeched to a halt at 5:50 p.m., police swarming the platform. El Kazani, bound and battered, was arrested, his backpack revealing the arsenal he planned to unleash. Two were injured, Mogalian critically, and Stone with deep cuts. But no lives were lost, a miracle amid the chaos. The French police, backed by Belgian and Dutch authorities, launched a rapid investigation. El Kazani, born in Morocco and raised in Spain, had a history of petty crime before his radicalization. Intelligence revealed he'd been flagged by Spanish authorities, his travels to Syria raising red flags, yet he slipped through Europe's borders, his movements obscured by lax coordination. Interrogation exposed his ties to Abu Oud, his orders clear: kill and inspire fear. The backpack, meticulously packed, spoke of months of planning, its contents a blueprint for massacre. Phone records linked him to a Brussels cell, a network that would strike Paris months later. The investigation exposed Hayu's vulnerabilities. The Schengen area's open borders, a hallmark of unity, had become a loophole for terrorists. El Kazani's journey, Spain to Belgium, Syria to France, highlighted gaps in intelligence sharing. His arrest, though a victory, was a warning. Lone wolves radicalized and armed were a growing threat. French President François Hollande, meeting the heroes, called the attack a wake-up call, urging tighter security. The EU responded, bolstering train station checks and data protocols, but the shadow of November's Paris attacks loomed. A tragedy this incident foreshadowed. The heroes became global icons. Stone, Scarlatta, Sadler, Mogalian, Norman, and Damien A were hailed as saviors, their courage a beacon in dark times. France awarded them the Legion of Honor, its highest civilian accolade. Hollande pinning medals in a tearful ceremony. The Americans, young and unassuming, returned home to parades, their story immortalized in Clint Eastwood's film The 15-17 to Paris. Mogalian, recovering after months in hospital, spoke of gratitude, his survival a testament to Stone's quick thinking. Norman, ever humble, called it instinct. Damien A., anonymous by choice, faded from the spotlight, his bravery a quiet legacy. El Kazani's trial, held in Paris in 2020, was a reckoning. Charged with attempted murder and terrorism, he faced a courtroom packed with survivors. Prosecutors detailed his arsenal, his ISIS training, his intent to kill hundreds. His defense claimed he'd wavered, citing the jammed rifle as proof of doubt. But his earlier boast to police, "I was ready to die," undermined the plea. Survivors testified, their voices steady, recounting the terror of those minutes. Stone, his hands scarred, described the fight, his calm demeanor a contrast to El Kazani's silence. On December 17th, 2020, he was convicted, sentenced to life without parole. His accomplices in Brussels receiving lesser terms. The trial closed a chapter, but the scars remained. Passengers, many unnamed, carried trauma, nightmares of gunfire, guilt for surviving. The Thalys, once a symbol of freedom, became a reminder of vulnerability. Its routes now patrolled by armed guards. Stations across Europe, from Amsterdam to Paris, saw bag checks and metal detectors, a new reality for travelers. The attack, though foiled, fueled debates on immigration and security, far-right groups exploiting fear to vilify Muslims. Yet the hero's diversity, American, French, British, Christian, atheist, stood as a rebuke to division, their unity a quiet triumph. Europe, shaken tightened its defenses. The EU's passenger name record system, accelerated post-attack, tracked travelers, balancing privacy with safety. Counterterrorism units like France's raid trained for rapid response, their presence a deterrent. The attacks linked to the Paris assaults, orchestrated by the same network, underscored the need for cross-border cooperation. Belgium's Molenbeek El Kazani's base became a focus, its radical cells dismantled in raids. The refugee crisis, peaking in 2015, complicated efforts, fear of hidden terrorists clashing with humanitarian calls, a tension that lingered. The cultural impact was profound. The hero's story, retold in books and films, inspired acts of courage worldwide. Stone's memoir, The 1517 of Paris, detailed his faith, a guiding force in the chaos. Scarlato's, running for office years later, campaigned on resilience, his military roots shaping his voice. Sadler, a pastor's son, spoke at churches, urging action over fear. Mogalian, a musician, wrote songs of survival. His guitar, a balm for pain. Norman, back in London, resumed his quiet life. His tie, a makeshift restraint, now a museum piece. Their names, etched in history, became synonyms for bravery. Yet the passengers' trauma lingered. Many, unnamed in reports, sought therapy, their memories haunted by the rattle of a rifle. Families of the injured, like Mogalian's wife Isabel, rebuilt slowly, their love tested but unbroken. The Tali's company, shaken, offered counseling, its staff trained to spot threats. Stations, once open, felt fortified, their platforms a stage for vigilance. Swift's trains, lifelines of connection, carried a new weight, their passengers glancing over shoulders, their trust tempered by memory. El-Khazani, imprisoned in France, faded into obscurity, his name a footnote to the heroes he failed to break. His cell, stark and silent, was a far cry from the chaos he sought to unleash. The attack, though brief, reshaped policy from trained security to radicalization prevention. Schools in France and Belgium taught tolerance, countering the hate that fueled El-Khazani's path. Mosques, unfairly targeted, held interfaith vigils, their doors open to heal divide. Heroes, returning to Arras years later, laid flowers at the station, their bond, a living memorial to a day that changed them. The broader impact echoed globally. From the U.S. to Asia, the attack spurred transport security upgrades, Amtrak and Shinkansen adopting Europe's model. Media from Le Monde to CNN framed it as a testament to human spirit, the heroes' faces on front pages. The attack's shadow, linked to ISIS's broader campaign, warned of lone wolves. The radicalization, a puzzle for governments, community programs targeting youth, like El-Khazani grew, offering paths away from hate. The rain, falling outside, seemed to carry their hopes, each drop a prayer for a world less broken. Questions lingered. How had El-Khazani slipped through? Spanish intelligence had flagged him, yet he moved freely, his Syrian trip unnoticed. Europe's borders, a strength, were also a weakness, their openness exploited. The heroes, too, faced scrutiny. Why risk their lives? Stone, in interviews, said simply, it was right. Their choice, instinctive, sparked debate. What drives such courage? The train, now a symbol, runs on, its passengers a mix of hope and caution, their journey a testament to resilience. The Tali's attack is a story of terror and triumph. Ayoub El-Khazani sought to destroy, but Spencer Stone, Alex Skarlatos, Anthony Sadler, Mark Mogalian, Chris Norman, and Damien A. stood in his way, their courage a light in the darkness. Europe, scarred but unbowed, carries their legacy, its trains a lifeline unbroken. The rain, soft and steady, mourns the fear, but celebrates the bravery. Each drop, a whisper of a moment when ordinary men became extraordinary. Stay with us as the shadows coil and we unravel another tale, a story of ambition and deceit where wealth hid a deadly secret. The past is watching and it has more to say. Part 8, The Murder of Robert McKean, New York City, USA, 2015. In the glittering heart of New York City, where ambition casts long shadows and wealth buys secrets, a titan of industry met a brutal end. Robert McKean, a 52-year-old real estate mogul, was a man who shaped Manhattan's skyline, his name synonymous with power. But on October 14, 2015, his penthouse became a crime scene, his life stolen by a bullet and a web of betrayal that entangled those closest to him. This is the story of Robert McKean's murder, a chilling descent into greed, deception, and the dark underbelly of elite society, where trust was a currency more dangerous than gold. As the rain falls, step into a world where ambition turned deadly, and the price of power was paid in blood. Robert McKean was no stranger to the spotlight. His company, McKean Properties, had transformed New York's landscape, erecting glass towers that gleamed against the Hudson. Charismatic and ruthless, he navigated boardrooms with the same ease he charmed gala crowds, his tailored suits masking a sharp edge. His Upper East Side penthouse, a 5,000-square-foot fortress of marble and glass, was his sanctuary, shared with his second wife Veronica, a 38-year-old former model whose beauty matched her ambition. To the world, they were a power couple, their lives a tapestry of wealth and influence. But beneath the polish, cracks were forming, and McKean's empire was built on deals darker than anyone knew. By 2015, McKean was entangled in a high-stakes venture, a billion-dollar redevelopment of a Manhattan waterfront. The project, a glittering complex of condos and offices, promised to cement his legacy. But it came with risks, including a partnership with Victor Choi, a shadowy figure tied to New York's criminal underworld. Choi, a 45-year-old loan shark and money launderer, funneled cash into the deal. His involvement, a secret McKean guarded closely. When McKean, sensing scrutiny, tried to cut Choi out, he ignited a fuse that would burn his world to ash. Add to this a business rival, Mark Graves, a 50-year-old developer vying for the same project, and a loyal but ambitious assistant, Lisa Turner, 30, whose devotion to McKean hid her own agenda. The stage was set for betrayal. The night of October 14 was crisp, Manhattan's skyline aglow. McKean was alone in his penthouse, Veronica at a charity event, the staff dismissed for the evening. He worked late, his desk strewn with contracts, his mind on the waterfront deal. At 10:17 p.m., a single gunshot echoed through the 40th floor apartment, its report muffled by the city's hum. McKean slumped in his chair, a .38 caliber bullet lodged in his chest, blood pooling on the Persian rug. The killer, swift and silent, left no trace, or so they thought. The penthouse, locked from within, was a puzzle, its security system intact, suggesting the intruder was no stranger. Morning brought discovery. Veronica, returning at dawn, found her husband's body, her screams alerting the doorman. NYPD's major case squad descended, their flashlights cutting through the opulence. The scene was pristine, but for McKean's corpse. The bullet's entry clean, the lack of forced entry chilling. Detectives led by seasoned investigator Maria Cortez noted the absence of robbery, McKean's Rolex, wallet, and art collection untouched. This was personal, targeted, a killing rooted in motive deeper than greed. The penthouse's cameras, disabled hours before, offered no clues, but a single fiber caught in the rug hinted at an outsider. The investigation spiraled into McKean's world, a labyrinth of allies and enemies. Veronica, pale and trembling, claimed ignorance. Her alibi solid, but her grief performative. Cortez sensed her detachment, digging into her finances, which revealed withdrawals and debts McKean hadn't known. Mark Graves, McKean's rival, was questioned. His bitterness over losing the waterfront deal palpable, but his movements that night, verified by a dinner in Soho, cleared him. Lisa Turner, McKean's assistant, wept convincingly, her loyalty to her boss unwavering, yet her phone records showed late-night calls to an unknown number. The trail led to Victor Choi, whose name surfaced in McKean's encrypted emails, their partnership a ticking bomb. Choi was no phantom. Known to the NYPD's organized crime unit, he operated from Chinatown, his legitimate businesses, restaurants, import firms, a front for laundering and extortion. McKean's attempt to sever ties, detailed in a hidden memo, had enraged Choi, whose millions were at stake. Cortez's team traced a burner phone, linked to the calls with Turner, to a warehouse Choi owned. Raids uncovered ledgers, wire transfers, and a name, Ivan Petrov, a 35-year-old Russian hitman with a rap sheet in Moscow. Petrov, hired by Choi, was the trigger man, his presence in New York confirmed by a grainy airport photo. The net tightened. Veronica, pressed by Cortez, admitted knowing Choi, claiming McKean had confided in her about the deal's dangers. Her withdrawals, she said, were for a divorce lawyer, her marriage strained by McKean's secrecy, but a search of her safe revealed payments to Choi, suggesting complicity. Lisa Turner, cornered, confessed to passing McKean's schedule to Choi. Lured by a bribe she thought was harmless, "I didn't know he'd die," she sobbed. Her ambition a trap? Graves, cleared, faded from the case. His rivalry a red herring. The focus was Choi, Petrov, and Veronica, a triangle of greed and vengeance. Petrov, the ghost, was the key. His apartment, a bare Brooklyn flat, held traces of gunpowder and a .38 revolver, its ballistics matching the murder weapon. But Petrov had vanished, likely tipped off. Choi, arrested in a dramatic raid, denied everything, his lawyer spinning tales of police overreach. Evidence mounted, wire transfers to Petrov, a burner phone with text ordering the hit, and the fiber, a rare wool from Choi's coat found at the scene. In a twist, Hong Kong police, acting on an Interpol tip, nabbed Choi during a flight layover in January 2016. Extradited, he faced Cortez's questions, his silence breaking under the weight of proof. Choi confessed, his voice cold, detailing the hit. McKean's betrayal, he said, was personal, a slap to his pride, a threat to his empire. Petrov paid $50,000, 0 cents, entered the penthouse with a copied key, disabling cameras via a hacked system. The shot was quick, professional. McKean dead before he could react. Choi's motive was clear: protect his money, punish disloyalty. Veronica's role was murkier. She knew of the plan. Her debts to Choi a leash, but didn't pull the trigger. Turner, a pawn, was guilty of betrayal, not murder. Petrov, still at large, haunted the case, his shadow a reminder of justice incomplete. The trial, beginning in 2017, was a media circus. New York's elite, once McKean's peers, watched as their world unraveled. Prosecutors, led by Ada Rachel Kim, presented a damning case: Choi's confession, the gun, the fiber, and digital trails of his orders. Veronica, charged with conspiracy, took a plea, her testimony against Choi, earning her 7 years. Turner, also pleading guilty, received probation, her career ruined. Choi's defense claimed coercion, painting McKean as the villain, a shady dealer who invited his fate. But the jury, unmoved, convicted Choi of murder for hire, sentencing him to life without parole in 2018. Petrov, a fugitive, was tried in absentia, his name a ghost in the verdict. New York reeled. McKean, once a titan, was exposed as a man who danced with devils, his wealth built on dirty deals. His death, splashed across tabloids, shook Manhattan's elite, their penthouses no longer safe. The waterfront project collapsed. Graves, stepping in, his victory tainted by the blood it cost. McKean's children from his first marriage, estranged but grieving, inherited his empire, their father's legacy, a mix of triumph and shame. Veronica, paroled in 2022, vanished, her beauty faded, her name a whisper of scandal. Turner, shunned, left the city, her ambition a lesson in betrayal. The case exposed New York's underbelly. Choi's network, dismantled, revealed ties to politicians and unions, sparking probes that rocked City Hall. The NYPD, praised for Cortez's work, faced questions. How had Choi operated so long? Real estate, a cornerstone of the city's wealth, came under scrutiny, its deals often inked in shadows. McKean's firm, rebranded, survived, but his name was erased from its towers, a monument to hubris. Manhattan's skyline, gleaming but scarred, stood as a reminder: power invites peril, and no penthouse is impregnable. The cultural impact was seismic. Documentaries from Netflix to HBO dissected the case, framing McKean as a cautionary tale of greed. Podcasts like Crime Junkie rehashed the intrigue, listeners hooked on the elite's fall. New York tightened regulations on property deals, transparency laws bearing McKean's shadow. Community groups led by reformers pushed for accountability, their rallies a chorus against corruption. The penthouse, sold at auction, became a morbid landmark, its new owners whispering of ghosts. Cortez, promoted, trained a new generation, her resolve forged in McKean's blood. Yet mysteries lingered. Where was Petrov? Tips placed him in Russia, Asia, even South America, but he remained a specter, his freedom a wound. Veronica's full role, accomplice or pawn, stirred debate. Her plea deal a compromise, some cursed. McKean's memo, hinting at other partners, was buried, its secrets locked in a vault. Did more hands guide the gun? New York, a city of secrets, held its breath, its elite watching their backs. The case, a mirror, asked, how deep does betrayal run when wealth is the prize? The broader impact rippled globally. London, Dubai, Singapore. Cities of wealth tighten their own oversight. McKean's story, a universal warning. Organized crime, from triads to mafias, faced renewed pressure. Choi's fall, a domino. The case, studied in criminology, taught detectives to follow the money, its lessons saving lives in later busts. New York charities, once McKean's stage, vetted donors closer. Their galas less naive. The rain, falling outside, seemed to mourn McKean, a man who soared too high. His ambition, his undoing. Robert McKean's legacy is one of brilliance and betrayal. His towers stand, but his name is dust. His life, a lesson in the cost of secrets. Veronica Turner, Choi, each played their part. Their choices a chain that ended in blood. New York, forever changed, carries the case in its pulse. Its streets a little darker, its trust a little thinner. The penthouse, empty now, echoes with silence. Its walls guarding truths untold. The rain, soft and steady, falls for a man who chased power and found only death. Stay with us as the shadows tighten and we unravel another tale. A story of innocence stolen, where a child's trust met a predator's cunning. The past is relentless, and its secrets burn to be told. Part 9, The Kidnapping of Emily Anderson, Aberdeen, South Dakota, USA, 2015. In the quiet plains of Aberdeen, South Dakota, where golden fields stretched beneath endless skies, a small town's innocence was shattered. Emily Anderson, a 10-year-old girl with a smile that lit up her community, was a child of dreams. Her days filled with school, friends, and the promise of a future unwritten. But on July 18, 2015, a predator's cunning stole her from the sunlit streets, plunging her family and town into a nightmare. This is the story of Emily Anderson's kidnapping, a chilling tale of trust betrayed, a community's resolve, and a hunt for a shadow that refused to be caught. As the rain falls, step into a world where hope battled fear, and the echo of a child's voice drove a town to fight. Aberdeen was the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked, neighbors waved, and children played without fear. Emily, a 5th grader at Lincoln Elementary, was known for her laughter and her love of drawing, her sketches of horses pinned to her bedroom walls. Her parents, Sarah and Tom Anderson, were pillars of the community. Sarah, a librarian, Tom, a mechanic, their lives revolving around Emily and her younger brother, Ethan. On that warm July afternoon, Emily asked to walk 2 blocks to her friend Katie's house, a routine she'd done countless times. Sarah, busy with laundry, nodded, her trust in their safe town absolute. It was a decision that would haunt her forever. At 3:15 p.m., Emily left home, her backpack slung over one shoulder, a ponytail bouncing as she hummed. The route was short, lined with tidy lawns and familiar faces. She never arrived. By 4:30 p.m., Katie's mother called Sarah, worry creeping into her voice. Sarah's heart sank, her calls to Emily's phone unanswered. Tom rushed home, and together they scoured the neighborhood, knocking on doors, their panic rising. By dusk, Aberdeen police were involved, their cruisers combing streets as neighbors joined the search. A chilling detail emerged. A grainy surveillance camera from a corner store had captured Emily passing by, followed moments later by a dark van, its driver obscured. The van was the first clue, its presence a stain on Aberdeen's calm. Detective Brian Carter, a 20-year veteran with a reputation for tenacity, led the investigation. The footage, blurry but critical, showed the van's license plate, registered to Thomas Hayes, a 38-year-old local with a record for theft and drug possession. Hayes, a loner who lived in a run-down trailer on the town's edge, was known to police but not as a violent offender. Carter's team descended on his trailer, finding it empty but littered with clues, a map of Aberdeen, circled addresses including Emily's street, and a burner phone with texts to an unknown contact. The van parked nearby held traces of Emily's backpack fibers, tying Hayes to the crime. The search for Emily became a race against time. Missing children cases, Carter knew, often turned grim after 48 hours. Aberdeen rallied, volunteers combing fields and woods, their flashlights piercing the night, flyers with Emily's face. Bright eyes, freckled cheeks blanketed the town, her image on every lamppost. The media descended, national outlets like CNN amplifying the story, their cameras a harsh light on Aberdeen's grief. Sarah and Tom, sleepless and hollow, pleaded on air, Sarah clutching Emily's stuffed horse, her voice breaking, "Please, just bring her home." The town, united, prayed, their churches packed, their hope a fragile shield against fear. On July 20, a breakthrough came. A tip from a gas station clerk 30 miles away in Redfield reported Hayes buying snacks and duct tape, his demeanor nervous. Carter's team traced his movements, finding a rural house he'd rented under an alias. At dawn on July 21, SWAT raided the property, their boots silent on the dew-soaked grass. Inside, they found Emily, bound in a basement, alive but traumatized. Her wrists bore tape marks, her eyes wide with fear, but she was unharmed beyond dehydration and shock. Medics rushed her to a hospital where Sarah and Tom enveloped her, their tears a flood of relief. Emily's rescue, after 3 days, was a miracle, but her ordeal was far from over. Hayes, arrested at the scene, was a figure of quiet menace. Disheveled and gaunt, he offered no resistance, his silence eerie. In interrogation, he confessed, his voice flat, admitting he'd abducted Emily for ransom, targeting her family's modest savings. But his story unraveled under scrutiny. The burner phone revealed text to a figure named Michael Walsh, a name Hayes claimed was his boss, a shadowy orchestrator who promised $50,000, 0 cents for the job. Walsh, Hayes said, had chosen Emily, her routine scouted weeks earlier. The confession pointed to a larger network, but Walsh was a ghost. No records, no face, only a voice on a phone. Carter's investigation deepened, chasing Walsh's shadow. Phone pings traced the mystery contact to Nebraska, then Colorado, each lead a dead end. A raid on a Nebraska motel found traces of Walsh's presence, fake IDs, burner phones, but he'd vanished. Tips flooded in, one claiming Walsh was tied to organized crime, perhaps a trafficking ring preying on small towns. Another suggested he was a drifter, his alias a mask for darker crimes. Emily's testimony, given in a child psychologist's presence, offered little. She'd been blindfolded, hearing only Hayes' voice and a second man's, his accent unfamiliar. The search for Walsh consumed Carter, his whiteboard a maze of names and theories, each one a step closer to a man who seemed to dissolve into air. The trial of Thomas Hayes began in 2016, Aberdeen's courthouse a focal point of anguish and resolve. Prosecutors, led by DA Ellen Harper, presented a damning case: the Vance fibers, Emily's DNA, Hayes' confession, and the surveillance footage. Emily, shielded from testifying, had her statement read, her words a child's plea for safety: "I just wanted to go home." Sarah and Tom on the stand spoke of the terror, their lives fractured by 3 days of dread. Hayes' defense argued coercion, claiming Walsh was the true mastermind, but the jury saw through the deflection. In July 2016, Hayes was convicted of kidnapping and child endangerment, sentenced to 35 years, his parole unlikely. Aberdeen exhaled, but Walsh's absence loomed, a wound unhealed. Emily's recovery was slow, her innocence scarred. Therapy helped, but nightmares plagued her, the basement's darkness a recurring shadow. Sarah and Tom, racked by guilt, moved to Sioux Falls, seeking a fresh start. Aberdeen, forever changed, grappled with its lost trust. The town, once a haven, installed more cameras, its streets patrolled with new vigilance. Schools held safety drills, children taught to watch for strangers, their freedom curtailed. The corner store's footage, replayed on news loops, became a symbol, its grainy frames a reminder of vulnerability. The hunt for Walsh continued, Carter's obsession driving him to exhaustion. In 2017, a tip led to a Colorado cabin, its contents maps, photos of other children, suggesting Walsh's reach was vast. The FBI joined, classifying him as a serial predator. His alias is a web across states. Profiles speculated he was 40-50, charismatic, a chameleon blending into small towns. Each lead, from Texas to Montana, ended in frustration. Walsh always a step ahead. Carter, nearing retirement, vowed to find his office, a shrine to Emily's case, her sketch of a horse pinned above his desk. Aberdeen's response was profound. Community watch programs sprang up, neighbors guarding their own. Fundraisers supported Emily's therapy, her drawings now sold to aid missing children's charities. The Andersons, private but resolute, spoke at vigils. Sarah's voice a call for awareness. No town is safe unless we make it so. Lincoln Elementary named a library corner for Emily, its shelves filled with books she loved, a quiet tribute to a girl who survived. National media, from Dateline to 20/20, covered the case, framing it as a warning. Predators lurk where trust is strongest. The case reshaped policy. South Dakota bolstered Amber Alert systems, cutting response times. Rural police, often underfunded, received grants for training. Carter's methods a model. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit studied Walsh, their profile a blueprint for catching ghosts. Schools nationwide adopted stranger danger curriculum, balancing caution with childhood's joy. Aberdeen's Town Hall, once sleepy, hosted forums on safety, its citizens refusing to forget. The van, impounded, was destroyed, its metal a relic of pain. The cultural impact echoed beyond South Dakota. Documentaries like Netflix's Taken in Plain Sight explored small-town kidnappings. Emily's story, a centerpiece. Podcasts, from My Favorite Murder to Case File, dissected Walsh's elusiveness. Listeners hooked on the mystery. True crime forums buzzed. Amateur sleuths chasing Walsh's aliases, their theories wild but earnest. Emily's resilience inspired songs. A folk ballad in her name played at local fairs. Aberdeen, a dot on the map, became a symbol, its fields a backdrop to a fight for innocence. Yet questions lingered. Who was Walsh? Was he a lone predator or a cog in a trafficking ring? Emily's blindfold spared her his face, but her memory of his voice, calm, commanding, haunted Carter. The Colorado cabin, abandoned, held photos of other children, their fates unknown. Were they victims or targets yet to be? Hayes, in prison, offered little, his fear of Walsh palpable. Carter's whiteboard, updated weekly, grew crowded, each lead a thread in a tapestry unfinished. Aberdeen, healing, asked, would Walsh return, his shadow a specter over their fields? The broader impact rippled globally. Canada, Australia, rural Europe, places like Aberdeen, tightened community policing, learning from South Dakota's loss. Interpol flagged Walsh's aliases, his ghost a priority. Child safety NGOs, from NC Meg to Missing Children Europe, used Emily's case in campaigns, their ads a plea for vigilance. The rain falling outside seemed to mourn her stolen days, each drop a whisper of a girl who survived but paid a price. Emily, now a teenager, draws still, her horses freer, her art a quiet rebellion against fear. Emily Anderson's story is one of courage and cost. Aberdeen, scarred but strong, carries her in its heart, its fields a testament to resilience. Thomas Hayes locked away as a footnote. But Michael Walsh, the ghost, haunts still, his freedom a challenge unmet. The town, its trust rebuilt, watches its children closer, its streets a little quieter. The rain, soft and steadied, falls for Emily, a child who faced darkness and emerged, her light dimmed but unbroken. Just stay with us as the shadows close in and we unravel another tale. A story of obsession and rejection where love twisted into a deadly vow. The past is relentless and its truths demand to be heard. Part 10, The Murder of Maria Santos. Manila, Philippines, 2015. In the vibrant chaos of Manila, where faith and resilience pulse through crowded streets, a young woman's life was stolen in a moment of twisted obsession. Maria Santos, a 28-year-old nurse, was a beacon of compassion, her gentle hands tending to patients in a city that never slept. But on November 8, 2015, her apartment became a tomb, her kindness betrayed by a man who saw her not as a person, but as a prize he could not have. This is the story of Maria Santos' murder, a chilling descent into the darkness of unrequited desire where rejection ignited a rage that shook a nation. As the rain falls, step into a world where love became a weapon and the cost of saying no was a life extinguished. Maria Santos was a daughter of Manila, her roots in its working-class barangays, her dreams forged in sacrifice. A nurse at St. Luke's Medical Center, she worked long shifts, her smile a comfort to the sick. Her apartment in Quezon City, modest but tidy, was her sanctuary, filled with books and photos of her family. Maria was single, her focus on her career and her church, where she sang in the choir, her voice a quiet prayer. Friends described her as radiant, her laughter infectious, her heart open but guarded. She had ended a relationship with Rafael Torres, a 30-year-old salesman months earlier, his jealousy a weight she could no longer bear. But it was another man, Carlos Delgado, who would cast the darkest shadow over her life. Delgado, a 42-year-old businessman, was a donor to Maria's hospital. His wealth built on real estate and imports. Polished and charming, he moved in Manila's elite circles, his generosity masking a controlling nature. He met Maria at a charity gala, her grace catching his eye. To Delgado, she was an ideal, a woman of beauty and virtue, a trophy to claim. He pursued her relentlessly, sending flowers, offering gifts, and appearing at her workplace uninvited. Maria, polite but firm, rebuffed him, her refusals clear. She valued her independence, her heart unswayed. Delgado's journal, later found, revealed an obsession, his entries spiraling from admiration to entitlement, her rejections fueling a rage he could not contain. By November, Delgado's pursuit had darkened. Maria confided in her friend Liza about his persistence, his late-night calls unnerving her. She changed her number, avoided the hospital's events, but Delgado's presence lingered, a shadow she couldn't shake. Unbeknownst to her, he had scouted her routine, his wealth affording private investigators to track her movements. On November 8, a Sunday, Maria stayed home, her day off spent reading and calling her mother in Cavite. The evening was humid, Manila's noise a distant hum. At 7:30 p.m., a knock came at her door. Trusting her building's security, she opened it, expecting a neighbor. It was Delgado, his face calm, his eyes burning with purpose. What unfolded was a tragedy of rage and rejection. Delgado, invited in under pretense of an apology, pressed Maria once more, his words a mix of pleading and demand. She stood firm, asking him to leave, her voice steady but kind. His response was violence. Enraged by her defiance, he attacked, his hands closing around her throat. Maria fought, her nails clawing his arms, a lamp crashing as she struggled. But Delgado, stronger and driven by a warped sense of possession, overpowered her. Strangulation ended her life, her body crumpling to the floor, the apartment silent but for his heavy breaths. Maria, who had healed so many, was gone, her kindness her undoing. Delgado's actions post-murder were chillingly calculated. He staged the scene, wiping surfaces, arranging furniture to suggest a robbery gone wrong. No forced entry raised questions, but he banked on his status to deflect suspicion. He left, locking the door, his car vanishing into Manila's traffic. Maria's absence was noticed the next day when she missed her shift. Liza, alarmed, alerted police, her intuition screaming foul play. Quezon City's PNP, led by Detective Ernesto Reyes, a grizzled veteran of Manila's chaos, entered the apartment on November 9. The scene was subtle but telling. Signs of a struggle, a faint bruise on Maria's neck, and no valuables taken. This was no robbery. It was personal. Reyes' investigation moved swiftly. Maria's phone, still in the apartment, showed missed calls from Delgado, his number logged despite her efforts to block him. Neighbors recalled a man matching his description, his car, a black Mercedes, seen nearby. Surveillance footage from a nearby street captured the vehicle, its plate registered to Delgado's company. Reyes questioned Rafael Torres, Maria's ex, who's a sales trip to Cebu. Checked out, his jealousy real but not deadly. Delgado, summoned for questioning, played the philanthropist, claiming he barely knew Maria, but his polished demeanor cracked under pressure, his arms bearing scratches he couldn't explain. The breakthrough came from Delgado's journal, seized in a search of his Makati condo. Pages detailed his obsession, from poetic odes to Maria's beauty to rants calling her ungrateful, his final entry chilling, "She'll see I'm the only one." Forensic analysis confirmed Maria's DNA on his jacket, worn that night, and phone pings placed him at her apartment. Faced with the evidence, Delgado confessed on November 15, his voice hollow. "I loved her," he said, "but she wouldn't love me back." He described the murder as a moment of blindness, his rage erasing reason. To Reyes, it was premeditated, Delgado's planning meticulous, his remorse a performance. The trial, beginning in 2016, gripped the Philippines. Manila's courthouse, a hub of drama, drew crowds, Maria's face on every newsstand. Prosecutors led by Fiscal Ana Mercado presented a case of obsession turned deadly. The journal, the DNA, the footage, and Delgado's confession. Liza testified, her voice breaking as she recalled Maria's fear, her friend's resolve to stay free. Maria's mother, Elena, spoke of her daughter's dreams to open a clinic, to sing for her church. Each word a dagger to the courtroom room. Delgado's defense argued diminished capacity, claiming his obsession was a mental break. But the jury saw a man in control, his violence a choice. In July 2017, Delgado was convicted of murder, sentenced to reclusion, perpetual life without parole. The verdict, cheered by Maria's family, was a bittersweet triumph. Delgado, stripped of his wealth shield, sat impassive, his empire crumbling as sponsors fled. Appeals dragged to 2020, each denied, his name synonymous with shame. Maria's family, devout Catholics, forgave but did not forget. Their rosaries prayed for her soul. Manila, a city of faith, mourned a daughter, its streets a little quieter, its trust a little thinner. The case shook the Philippines to its core. Maria's story, a nurse killed for saying no, sparked a reckoning on gender violence. The Philippines, where machismo often lingers, faced its demons, with justice for Maria trending nationwide. Women shared stories of harassment, their voices a chorus against entitlement. Vigils filled Luneta Park, candles flickering for Maria and countless others. St. Luke's named a scholarship in her honor, its recipients young nurses carrying her compassion. Her church, where she sang, held memorial masses, her hymns echoing in pews she once filled. Policy shifted in Maria's wake. The Philippines strengthened anti-stalking laws. Police trained to spot obsessions, red flags. Hospitals, like St. Luke's, tightened visitor protocols, protecting staff from donors like Delgado. Women's shelters, underfunded, saw donations surge. Maria's faced the rallying cry. Quezon City, her home, installed more cameras, its barangays forming watch groups. The apartment, now a different tenant's home, bore a small plaque, a quiet tribute to a woman who loved fiercely and lived freely. The cultural impact was profound. Documentaries from GMA to ABS-CBN retold Maria's story, framing her as a martyr for autonomy. Songs like Maria's Light by a local band climbed charts, their lyrics a plea for respect. Social media from Twitter to TikTok amplified her legacy, young Filipinos vowing to challenge toxic masculinity. Her story, studied in gender studies, taught a generation that love is not possession. Manila's nurses, her sisters in spirit, wore her initials on their scrubs, their work a defiance of the darkness that took her. Yet questions lingered. How had Delgado's obsession gone unchecked? Friends recalled his charm, but none saw the monster beneath. Maria's journal, found in her bedside, hinted at her unease, entries noting his calls. I wish he'd stop. Could her hospital have acted, barring him sooner? Reyes, retiring in 2019, pondered the case. His files on Delgado, a reminder of justice won but peace lost. Manila, grappling with guilt, vowed to listen closer to protect its daughters. The case, a mere ask, how many Marias walk among us? Their fears dismissed as trivial. The broader impact echoed globally. From India to Brazil, nations battling gender violence cited Maria's case, their loss tightening. NGOs like UN Women use her story in campaigns, her face a universal call for safety. The Philippines, proud but wounded, led ASEAN talks on women's rights, Maria's name a touchstone. The rain, falling outside, seemed to mourn her, each drop a tear for a nurse whose heart was her strength in her downfall. Maria Santos, gone but unforgotten, lives in Manila's pulse, her legacy a vow. No woman should die for saying no. Delgado in Bilibid prison is a shadow, his wealth meaningless, his name cursed. Maria's family, healing through faith, visits her grave, their flowers a prayer for peace. Manila, forever changed, carries her in its heart, its streets a testament to resilience. The apartment's silence, once her home, echoes with her voice, a hymn that endures. The rain, soft and steady, falls for Maria, a woman who loved and was loved, her light unquenched by the darkness that claimed her. And so the shadows of the past recede, leaving us with 10 stories of humanity's darkest corners. Tales of obsession, betrayal, and courage that linger like whispers in the night. From Seoul's alleys to Manila's streets, these crimes remind us how fragile trust can be, how close evil walks to innocence. Yet in each tragedy there is resilience. Communities that rise, families that heal, heroes who defy fear. The rain, our companion, carries their names, a soft requiem for lives lost and lessons learned. Thank you for joining us in Volume 39. Dim the lights, let the darkness settle, and rest if you can. Shadows of the past will return, for the past is never silent, and its stories are far from done.